I got this Synsonic with the speaker built in.
Oh, yeah.
Black guitar with the speaker built in, and I got one. And I think the thing stayed in tune for like 5 minutes, if that. One strum and it's out of tune. And even my guitar teacher was like, this thing is garbage. But I had a guitar. And I was so excited. And I was taking guitar lessons when I was 12, and I hated them. Hated them. Because it was, this is how you do this, and you're going to play this song. And I'm like, I don't want to play Polly Wolly Doodle.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to know. I want to play this. I want to do that. How do they do that? And it's like, well, you have to learn the scales first, and you have to learn, and I don't want to.
Sure.
So I ended up getting completely soured on it, put my guitar in a box and shoved it under my bed for like 2 years. And then, that bug comes back, and I pulled it out one day, and I was fiddling around with it, and I just started writing. And complete garbage, because, I'm 14 years old and I have no idea how to write a song.
Sure.
But I'm just going like do 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 on the strings and whatever. And then I was doing something and my brother leans over and he goes, "That's actually kind of cool." Because I was just doing something.
Some little riff or something.
Yeah. And so I don't remember exactly how it happened, but I ended up with this chord poster. And I put the chord poster on my wall and I learned every chord on there. And then that's when it was like, I started really listening to music, and well, how does this song go together? How did they get from this part, and how did they figure this out, and what does this do, and why did the drums do that? And my brother, he's really into music, so he was kind of doing the same thing from a different perspective, and then because he's really into like metal, so like Metallica was his favorite band, and I couldn't figure out hair metal.
Sure,
I couldn't figure it out. Like, I knew I was supposed to like it because it was the 80s, but I hated it because it was just embarrassing.
Yeah.
And you're watching these guys dance around, and it was just like, your lyrics are terrible because it pours some sugar on me and it doesn't even make sense.
Oh, yeah.
And you're bouncing around, and it's more like a fashion show than it is music. And
you've got names like Poison and Winger and all this crap.
Yeah. And what was funny is, like, some of them were actually talented musicians, but you couldn't figure out because you
couldn't get past the image they were putting on. Yeah.
But they also, I think some of them dumbed down what they were doing to make it more commercial or whatever. Because you hear somebody talking about, oh, Kip Winger's a really good bassist. And you go, he is? Like, I just hear him singing about statutory rape. I don't hear him singing about like where's this great bass line? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like, and then Nirvana came in, and I kind of started discovering stuff outside of that, like Violent Femmes and some other stuff where I was going, oh, okay, you can just show up in jeans and a t-shirt. You don't have to wear spandex and have weird hair, like poodle hair. Like, you can just be a dude and play music.
Yeah, you can be like the Minutemen, or you can be like, yeah.
And so then it was just like, oh, and then that just opened the floodgates. And so then I just started exploring anything and everything I could find. And of course, that's the exact same time when alternative hit. So you had grunge, you had alt rock, you had punk, you had all of this stuff. And basically, they just gave it whatever name would sell. So if you were from Seattle, you were grunge, even if you weren't.
Whether or not that was the sound, yeah.
If you were from New York, you were hardcore, whether you were or not. If you were DC, you were whatever the hell DC was. And so it was just like, give me, gimme, 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 gimme. And the lyrics were so deep and poetic, even if they weren't. I mean, if they were just made up gibberish, like they had this feeling of deepness, like, oh, this has to mean something that's above my head. You know, he's singing about drugs, or maybe he's singing about this, or who knows. But it was just like, when before every song was, I'm going to sing about how I'm going to bang you.
Sure.
You know what I mean? And it's just like, yeah, we get it. But I'm an ugly teenager, and I'm never going to understand what the hell you're singing about. So I'm going to listen to this guy who's singing about how it sucks that nobody likes him.
Yeah.
I don't fit in anywhere. I'm ugly, things like that. And it's like, that's me. I'm ugly and don't fit in.
Well, it was great because all of the stuff that was hard to find and more underground in the 80s, like stuff that was going on in, say, like the stuff with Husker Du and the Replacements and all that was more, and even more obscure bands that was more difficult to find, suddenly was the mainstream for a little bit. It was great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know how it was in the rest of the world, but in that time in Pittsburgh, there was like a scavenger hunt.
Mm-hmm.
So in other words, if you had a band and everyone, I never heard of them, you win.
Yeah.
And so, but that's what was kind of fun about it was the point was to find the most obscure band that no one has ever heard of so that you could be the one to introduce everyone to it.
Yeah.
And it wasn't, I don't want to listen to it because I didn't discover it. It was, okay, Jimmy discovered this new band. We're all going to get together and listen to this.
Mm-hmm.
And, as you're driving around because there's nothing else to do and you've already been thrown out of the mall, you're throwing the cassette tapes in that you bought in the dollar bin or whatever of like, here, I found this thing. Like, this is going to be really good. Let's just put it in and see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
And if it sucks, you throw it out the window. And if not, it makes it into regular rotation.
Mm-hmm.
And, it was still on that, like, cassette or CD. Well, I don't have a CD player, so we'll get the cassette.
Mm-hmm.
That type of thing.
Yeah.
Or, oh, man, we only have that on CD, and he doesn't have a CD player, so we're not listening to it today.
Mm-hmm.
But you'd have all this stuff. And so that's how every new discovery shaped my music. Because, I didn't know you could do that.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know you could play that style of music. I didn't know you could do that with a drum set. I didn't know you could do this. And then you'd run into, a band like Helmet that's, jazz influenced and, they go this way. And then you'd run into something like G.G. Allen, which, in hindsight is disgusting. But at the time, it was just this thing of like, wait, you can do that?
Mm-hmm.
Like you can be that messed up and there's a genre for it somewhere. And so then it was just, like I said, it was just the sky's the limit at that point. Give me a guitar and let me do whatever I want.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really what influenced my music and my songwriting is the fact that you can do whatever you want.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's interesting because when I was listening to buRgandy juRk and I heard some of a lot of stuff. I can hear some Violent Femmes influence sometimes, and I can hear some hardcore influence sometimes, and it is. What's kind of cool is that it never settles down into one particular genre or another, and yet it is multiple genres at the same time. So somehow you achieved this like. I don't know, what do they call it, like synesthesia or something, where it's all just this somehow this amalgamation of genres manages to come out as this one sound.
Yeah. Well, and that was part of the goal was every song has to have two different genres in it.
Okay.
So if you write a punk song, then you have to do something else with it. So that it's not, because what happens is, and this was my biggest issue, this was one of the things that I used to complain about, was, okay, I'd be into this band and that'd be really good, and wow, I'm really discovering it, and then they'd do something like, in order to expand their music, they'd introduce a keyboardist. Now, I like keyboardists, don't get me wrong, anyone out there who plays a keyboard, please forgive me, but it was just the thing of like, I was looking at it going, the next thing you do to expand your band is to bring in someone else, not to get better at your instrument.
Sure. Yeah.
Not to improve yourself, but just expand. And that's great if that's what you want to do. But I always went, but what would have happened if they just would have kept going as those four people or those three people? What else could they have figured out? And that's why, like you were saying, I like, if you're going to write a punk song, why not put metal in it?
Yeah.
Or why not take a punk song and then put ballad in it? And one of the things that you hear in punk a lot is you have this 4-chord song that's just kind of fast and loud, but it starts out with this really beautiful musical beginning. And they do this thing and doo-doo-doo-doo-doo, and you listen to it and go, wow, that's really cool. And then it just goes into the 4-chord part. And you're like, but I wanted you to do more with that. Well,
I mean, and that's to me, that's like what the Clash were doing.
Yeah.
Like eventually, if they'd stuck it out and not kicked Mick Jones out of the band, they might have been able to incorporate some of Joe Strummer's world music stuff, and then what Mick Jones went on to do with Big Audio Dynamite or something. You could imagine them kind of like bringing some of that together, and they had started to, like, when they got into Sandinista and then Combat Rock and then. But or like I thought Morphine was going to kind of go in that direction too, where by the time they got to the Night and were incorporating some more ballad stuff, and there was some gorgeous music on there that they were kind of moving out of. It was still just them, but like out of just the 2-string guitar and the saxophone stuff. So there are examples of that out there, but they're few and far between. Right. A lot of it's just people either they decide they're going to, like you said, bring in the next member, or they end up breaking up because they can't think of anything else to do.
Or they want to go in two separate directions.
Yeah.
Which honestly has been the experience.
Yeah.
For God, with the amount of lineup changes that I've been through, but that's kind of the thing, is it's just no matter what, it's got to be this experiment, because it's going to die the moment that I say, I don't know what else to do.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't know what else to do without adding this other stuff. And so I push the lines, where, hey, wait a minute, that's not a guitar or a bass, but it can be replicated.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a part that's, in order to push the guitar, there's a little bit of a cello added to it.
Mm.
But you don't miss it, because that's the thing is, then you see the band live, right? Oh, they added a keyboard to the song, and the song's great. And then you see them live, well, they don't have a keyboardist.
Right.
So then that hook is gone.
Yeah.
And now it's a stripped-down version, which is cool, because it's a different version of the song, but at the same time, you fell in love with that keyboard part.
Sure.
And so I'm going, in order for this to work, it either has to be able to be replicated close enough so that, that works. I can't really tell the difference, because live and recorded is different anyways.
Yeah.
Or it's something that seems added on, not taken away. For like some songs, we add extra parts and stretch things out or do things a little differently to make it different. But I don't want it to be that, oh, wow, in the recording it sounds like this, but then when we see him live, like it's missing half of it. And it's a struggle, because then even at the recording stage, it's, well, the rhythm guitar is stereo, so there's two of them. Like, does that even, so there's the recording process even in that is, we got to stay true to make sure that this is going to sound right. So sometimes it's, the lead part is stereoed and put in with the rhythm guitar so that it evens it out. I mean, don't get me started.
It's something that's fascinating to me. It's a rabbit hole that could be gone down for quite some time.
That's the thing. Yeah.
Well, I mean, and that's one of the fascinating things, and sometimes to the music's detriment, but sometimes it enhances it. There's this fine line where the studio itself is an instrument, right?
Right.
I mean, because there is so much that you can do in there, and sometimes it ends up getting overwrought and overproduced, but
right.
Sometimes it's great.
Yeah, well, that's the other thing too, is my band members hate me because I learned how to record on tape. I've switched over to digital because rewinding tape sucks.
Sure.
Because you rewind it all the way back to the beginning, then you hit play, and then you bump the wrong string and have to rewind it again, and it's really obnoxious. So digital is great because you can just click and then click. But the beauty of tape is you got to be talented to record on tape.
Right.
Because you hit play, and then you play, and then you hit stop and hope you didn't screw up too much. And so I treat digital the same way. Like, okay, I'm hitting play. And unless it's absolutely necessary, I don't do punch in or punch outs.
Okay.
So you get what you get. And if you screw up, I make you start from the beginning. And, there's a lot of eye rolling from the bandmates when it's like, no, you could have done it better. Because there's the perfectionist side of anybody that's like, I could have done it better.
Sure.
But then there's the human side of somebody who says, I don't want to do this.
Yeah, good
again.
enough.
I don't. Please. We've been here an hour.
Yeah.
Could we just move on?
Mm-hmm.
No, please. It's one note. You could punch it. No, we're going to do it again, and you're going to get it this time. And that's the way I do things. Is I find it fun. I'm